Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're going to be exploring nature as a teacher, lessons from the wild. It's actually a transcript from another podcast episode. And it's really got me thinking about how much wisdom we can gain from nature, just by observing the natural world around us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
Nature's been around, way longer than we have. It's had to face every kind of challenge imaginable. So there's definitely a lot we can learn from it, especially when it comes to things like resilience.
Oh, absolutely. And this episode is just full of these amazing examples. Everything from how trees can teach us about patience to how desert plants have adapted to extreme conditions. And then this idea of symbiosis, which I'm really fascinated by, like with bees and flowers.
Yeah, that's a great one. That's a really great place to start, actually. I think we can all relate to the idea of needing a little more patience sometimes. The source talks about trees, specifically the bristlecone pine, which can live for thousands of years. In some of the harshest conditions on Earth.
Thousands of years. Wow. That really puts our human lifespan into perspective. What is the secret to their longevity?
Well, part of it is their incredibly slow growth rate.
Yeah.
They often grow in these rocky, nutrient-poor soils,
Yeah.
and they just grow so slowly, adding like a fraction of an inch to their girth every year. Not exactly instant gratification.
Not at all. It makes you think about how we approach our own goals, right? Maybe we could all benefit from slowing down a little.
Definitely. I mean, the bristlecone pine teaches us that resilience isn't just about, bouncing back quickly. It's about enduring, adapting, finding ways to thrive even when things are tough.
Absolutely. Which leads perfectly into that next lesson, adaptability. I was so fascinated by those examples in the source about how animals adapt to their environments, like the Arctic fox changing its fur color, its camouflage at its finest.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And speaking of harsh environments, the source also talks about desert plants like cacti. They've evolved to store water during these really long, prolonged droughts.
Yeah, it's incredible, like how they can survive in such extreme conditions. What can we as humans learn from that kind of adaptability, do you think?
Well, I mean, we may not be able to, change our physical appearance like the Arctic fox, but we do have that mental and emotional capacity to adapt to new situations
Right.
when we face challenges, whether it's a job loss
Mm.
or a relationship ending
Mm-hmm.
or even, a global pandemic.
Yeah.
We can draw on our inner resources
Yeah.
and find ways to not only cope, but also to thrive.
It's like we have those survival skills kind of encoded in our DNA, just like those desert plants. We just have to learn how to tap into them.
Exactly. And that brings us to another important theme from the source, this idea of balance and interconnectedness. They use the example of a forest ecosystem, which I think is really powerful.
Yeah, I love that analogy. It's like everything in the forest is connected, right? From the
Yep.
tiniest insects to the tallest trees. They all have a role to play, and they rely on each other for survival.
Exactly. It's like this delicate balance.
Yeah.
The predators help control the prey populations, the decomposing leaves nourish the soil, the rivers provide water for everything to grow. It's all intertwined.
And that balance is so important, not just in nature, but in our own lives too, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're constantly juggling work, relationships, personal time, and it's easy to feel out of whack when one area starts to dominate.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And the forest ecosystem reminds us that our actions have ripple effects. Just like a fallen tree can create a new habitat for insects and fungi, our choices can impact the people and environment around us.
Yeah, it's not just about me, myself, and I. We're all part of something much bigger. Speaking of being part of something bigger, the source material talks about this really fascinating concept of cooperation.
Yes, and they give this great example. The symbiotic relationship between bees and flowers. It's something we've all learned about in school, but maybe you haven't thought about in this context.
You're right. I remember learning about pollination, but I don't think I really appreciated the depth of that partnership. They need each other to survive. The bees get nectar. The flowers get pollinated. Everybody wins.
Exactly. It really challenges that whole idea that competition is the only way to thrive. What if we took a page from nature's book and approached our own communities and workplaces with a more cooperative spirit?
It makes you wonder what we could accomplish if we focus more on mutual benefit and less on, winning at all costs.
Totally. And what's interesting is even these seemingly stable networks are subject to change. The source talks about this idea of impermanence, which I think is really thought-provoking.
Oh, for sure. It's one of those universal truths, right, that we all know intellectually, but can be hard to accept emotionally. The seasons change, animals migrate, trees shed their leaves, nothing stays the same forever.
Right. And yet as humans, we often resist change. We cling to familiarity, to what we know,
Right.
even when it no longer serves us. It's like we're fighting against the natural flow of life.
We've all been there. We get attached to relationships, jobs, even our own identities. And it can be really hard to let go when things shift. But nature shows us that letting go is not only natural, it's essential for growth.
Yeah. Like, think about those trees shedding their leaves in the fall. It seems like a loss.
Yeah.
But it's actually preparation for new life in the spring. It's about making space for something new to emerge.
It's like nature is constantly reminding us that change is inevitable and that resisting it only creates suffering. Maybe instead of seeing change as an ending, we can start to view it as a necessary step towards something even better.
Absolutely. And that perspective shift can be so liberating.
Mm.
Speaking of liberation, the source also touches on this concept that's been really resonating with me lately, the idea of finding contentment in simplicity.
Oh, yeah. They talk about how animals live so fully in the present moment. They're not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. They're just being.
Exactly. And there's so much wisdom in that. Animals aren't burdened by the, complexities of human thought. They're focused on their immediate needs, finding food, shelter, safety, and there's this real sense of contentment that comes with that simplicity.
Yeah, it's such a contrast to how we often live, isn't it? We're constantly striving, achieving, accumulating, always looking for the next thing, the bigger thing.
Right. It's like we've been conditioned to believe that happiness lies in acquiring more, doing more, being more. But nature shows us that contentment can be found in the simplest of things.
You know, I was just reading about this concept called forest bathing, which is essentially just spending time in nature, immersing yourself in the sights, sounds, and smells. And there's a growing body of research showing that it can have some amazing
Oh,
benefits.
yeah, it's fascinating. And it's interesting because many indigenous cultures have understood this for centuries. Their spiritual practices are deeply intertwined with nature, recognizing that interconnectedness of all things.
Yeah, like they never lost sight of that connection.
Exactly. And those practices often emphasize mindfulness, presence, gratitude for the natural world, things that I think we could all benefit from incorporating into our modern lives.
Absolutely. Speaking of gratitude, I'm really grateful for this reminder from the source material about the importance of letting go. You mentioned how clinging to familiarity can actually hinder our growth, but it's so easy to fall into that trap.
It is, it is. But nature offers these beautiful metaphors for letting go. Think about the changing seasons. Autumn is a time of shedding, of releasing what no longer serves us. The trees let go of their leaves, creating this vibrant display of color before settling into the stillness of winter.
Yeah, it's almost like a celebration of impermanence, like nature saying, it's okay to let go, it's all part of the cycle.
Exactly. And what's beautiful is that letting go makes space for new beginnings. Spring follows winter, bringing fresh growth and renewed life. What if we approach the challenges in our own lives with that same sense of trust? Trusting that even when things feel difficult or uncertain, there's a potential for something beautiful to emerge on the other side.
That's a really empowering way to think about it. Like nature is giving us permission to surrender to the flow of life, to trust the process, even when we don't understand it.
Right, and that surrender can be incredibly freeing. It allows us to step out of that constant struggle of trying to control everything and instead embrace the mystery and wonder of what each new moment might bring.
Okay, so we've talked about patience, resilience, balance, cooperation, letting go, all these incredible lessons we can learn from observing the natural world. But I'm wondering, what about that sense of awe and wonder that nature inspires? It's not exactly a tangible lesson, but it feels so important.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That sense of awe and wonder is crucial. It's what connects us to something larger than ourselves, reminding us that we're part of something vast and interconnected. And it's something that modern society often overlooks.
Yeah, we get so caught up in our busy lives, our screens, our to-do lists, that we forget to look up at the stars or appreciate the intricate details of a flower.
Right. And it's a shame because those moments of awe and wonder are what nourish our souls. They remind us of the beauty and mystery of life, and they spark a sense of curiosity and gratitude that can really transform our perspective.
So how do we cultivate that sense of awe and wonder? Is it as simple as just spending more time in nature?
I mean, that's definitely a good starting point, but it's also about shifting our mindset. It's about approaching the world with a sense of openness and curiosity, like a child seeing things for the first time.
I love that, like putting on a pair of wonder glasses
Yeah.
and seeing the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Exactly. Notice the intricate patterns on a leaf, the way sunlight dances on the water, the symphony of sounds in a forest. These are all invitations to tap into that sense of awe and wonder that's always available to us.
Yeah, it's like nature is whispering secrets to us if only we take the time to listen.
And those secrets can be profoundly healing. Studies have shown that spending time in nature can reduce stress, lower blood pressure, boost our immune system, even improve our mental health.
It's like nature is medicine for the soul.
It truly is. And the beautiful thing is, it's available to everyone. You don't need any special equipment or training. Just step outside and open yourself up to the experience.
You know, as we're talking about this, keep coming back to that tree analogy from earlier. The bristlecone pine standing strong for thousands of years through harsh winds and scorching sun. It's such a powerful image of resilience and endurance.
It is. And it makes me think about how we often focus on the challenges and struggles of life, but we forget to appreciate the strength and resilience we've developed along the way.
It's like we're all bristlecone pines in our own way, weathering the storms and standing tall.
Exactly. And perhaps those storms are what give us our character, our depth, our unique beauty.
Yeah, so maybe the next time we're facing a challenge, instead of feeling overwhelmed, we can remember the bristlecone pine and tap into that inner strength that's always there.
Yeah, it's a powerful reminder that we're capable of far more than we often give ourselves credit for, and that even in the face of adversity, there's always the potential for growth and transformation.
That's a beautiful thought. And it brings us full circle to the beginning of our conversation, back to the idea of nature as a teacher. We've covered so much ground, from patience and resilience to cooperation and contentment.
And the key takeaway, I think, is that these lessons are always available to us. Nature is a constant source of wisdom and inspiration if we only take the time to observe and listen.
It really is amazing how much we can learn from nature when we just, open ourselves up to it.
And what's interesting is this whole deep dive was actually inspired by another podcast about eco-spirituality and the wisdom of the earth.
Eco-spirituality, that sounds fascinating.
It is. It is. It's
Yeah.
basically the idea that we can find spiritual connection and meaning through our relationship with the natural world.
So it's not so much about like a specific religion or dogma, but more about just recognizing our interconnectedness with nature.
Exactly. It's about understanding that we're not separate from nature. We're part of it.
Yeah.
And by, deepening our relationship with the earth, we can also deepen our understanding of ourselves and our place in the universe.
That really resonates with me. We've been talking about all these lessons from nature. Patience, resilience, balance, cooperation, letting go, contentment. And it feels like they're all pointing to this deeper truth about our connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah, I think you're right. And maybe that's the ultimate lesson nature has to teach us. That we're not just, these isolated individuals struggling to make our way in the world, but that we're actually integral parts of this vast and interconnected web of life.
And that realization can be both humbling and empowering at the same time.
Oh, absolutely. It humbles us by reminding us that we're not the center of the universe. But it also empowers us by showing us that we have a role to play in the grand scheme of things. Our actions matter. Our choices have an impact.
So maybe the invitation here is to approach our lives with a renewed sense of purpose and responsibility.
Yeah, I think so. To remember that we're not just here for ourselves, but to contribute to the well-being of the whole. To live in a way that honors that interconnectedness of all things.
And maybe that starts with something as simple as just paying attention to the natural world around us, noticing the trees, the birds, the clouds, feeling the wind on our skin, the sun on our face.
Right. Those simple acts of awareness can be so grounding. They remind us that we're a part of something larger than ourselves. And that even amidst all the chaos of modern life, there's this sense of peace and stability that we can find in the rhythms of nature.
This has been such an enriching conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on nature and our place in it.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much wisdom is right there waiting for us if we just take the time to listen.
So for anyone listening who's feeling inspired to connect more deeply with nature, what would you recommend as a first step?
I'd say start small. Take a walk in a park, sit by a lake, listen to the birds singing. Just be present in the moment. And notice what you see, hear, and feel.
And maybe even take a page from that eco-spirituality playbook and approach nature with this sense of reverence and gratitude.
Yeah, that's a beautiful suggestion. Gratitude is such a powerful practice. It really opens our hearts to the beauty and abundance that's all around us.
Well, I'm definitely feeling grateful for this conversation and for the reminder that nature is our greatest teacher.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you. And remember, the wisdom of the wild is always available to us. All we have to do is open ourselves up to receive it.
Beautifully said. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.